The alarm blared through the cramped cockpit of the Bright Moon, dragging Kang Teo from his shallow sleep. He groaned and slapped the control panel until the noise stopped. Through the viewport, stars stretched into thin lines as his small freighter traveled through hyperspace. Another day, another delivery, another credit closer to paying off this rust bucket he called a ship. Teo rubbed his eyes and checked the navigation screen. 2 hours until he reached Nethera Prime's orbit. He had time for instant noodles and maybe a shower if the water recycler was working. It wasn't. Of course it wasn't. He was 24 years old and hauling boxes across the galaxy for barely enough money to keep his ship fueled. This wasn't the life he'd imagined when he bought the Bright Moon 3 years ago. Back then, he thought owning a ship meant freedom. Now he knew it meant debt, loneliness, and a lot of broken equipment. The package in his cargo hold was marked Fragile Ancient Artifact. Teo had carried stranger things. Last month, he delivered a container of live singing worms to a Vrax restaurant. The month before that, someone's frozen grandmother. At least artifacts didn't smell or make noise. When the Bright Moon dropped out of hyperspace, Nethera Prime filled his viewport. The planet was dead, its surface gray and cracked like old concrete. A research station orbited above it, a small cluster of modules connected by tubes. Teo opened a communication channel. "This is courier ship Bright Moon requesting docking permission. I have a delivery for Dr. Han Sora." Static crackled for a moment. Then a stressed voice responded. "Bright Moon, this is Nethera Station. Dock at Port 7. Quickly, please." Teo frowned. The woman sounded worried. He guided his ship toward the indicated port and felt the magnetic clamps engage with a thunk. The airlock hissed as it equalized pressure. He grabbed the package and stepped into the station. The corridor was empty, but he could hear raised voices echoing from somewhere ahead. Teo followed the sound to a large chamber filled with equipment and people in research uniforms. They were all crowded around something in the center of the room. A woman with short black hair looked up as he entered. She wore a name tag that read, Dr. Han Sora. "You're the courier?" she asked. "That's me. I have your package." Teo held up the sealed container. "Thank you. Just put it on that table." Dr. Sora pointed without really looking at him. Her attention was fixed on whatever everyone was staring at. Teo set the package down and curiosity got the better of him. He moved closer to see what the fuss was about. In the center of the room stood a tall pillar made of some kind of crystal. It was taller than a person and covered in strange symbols that seemed to glow with a faint blue light. The symbols moved slowly across the surface like living things. "What is it?" Teo asked. An alien researcher, one of the 4-armed Kelvin species, answered without turning around. "A Star King obelisk. We found it in the ruins below. First intact piece of their civilization ever discovered." Teo had heard of the Star Kings. Everyone had. They were the ghosts of the galaxy, an ancient race that had vanished millions of years ago. They'd left behind ruins on dozens of worlds, but nothing that anyone could understand. Their writing was impossible to translate. Their technology was beyond anything the current species could comprehend. "No one can read their language," Dr. Sora said, frustrated. "We've been trying for 6 hours. Every scanning device, every translation program, nothing works. It's like the symbols don't mean anything." "Or they mean everything," another researcher muttered. "Maybe it's mathematical, or musical, or—" "It's not any of those," someone else interrupted. "I've run every test." Teo stepped closer to the obelisk, drawn by its strange beauty. The blue light pulsed gently, like a heartbeat. He reached out to touch it. "Wait, don't," Dr. Sora started to say, but Teo's fingers were already brushing against the crystal surface. Everything changed. The symbols on the obelisk blazed bright, so bright that everyone in the room threw up their hands to shield their eyes. A sound filled the chamber, deep and resonant, like bells and thunder mixed together. And Teo's mouth opened. Words poured out. Strange words, beautiful words, words in a language he'd never heard before. But somehow his tongue knew how to shape them, his throat knew how to sing them. The syllables were complex and flowing, ancient and powerful. He spoke for 10 seconds, maybe 15. Then the light faded and the sound stopped. Teo stumbled backward, his hand leaving the obelisk. His heart was pounding. "What?" he started to say. "What was that?" The room was silent. Every person, human and alien alike, stared at him with wide eyes and open mouths. Dr. Bikes. Sora looked like she'd seen a ghost. "You spoke it," she whispered. "You spoke the lost tongue." "The what?" "The language of the Star Kings." She moved closer to him slowly, like he might disappear if she moved too fast. "No one has spoken that language in millions of years. No translation program works. No species in the galaxy can interpret it. But you just rate it. Fluently." Teo's legs felt weak. He sat down on a nearby crate. "I don't understand. I'm just a delivery guy. I barely passed basic school. I can't even speak Kelvin, and I've been around Kelvin my whole life." "Can you do it again?" the four-armed researcher asked. "Please try to read more of the obelisk." Teo looked at the crystal pillar. The symbols were still there, still glowing softly. He stared at them, and suddenly, somehow, he understood. Not with his mind. His mind had no idea what they meant, but his mouth knew. His voice knew. "It says," Teo spoke slowly, translating as he read. "It says, 'Here lies the seal of the first authority. Speak with the voice of kings, and the doors of eternity shall open. Speak with the voice of servants, and remain forever bound.'" The room erupted in chaos. People shouted questions at him. Someone ran to get recording equipment. An alien researcher fainted. Dr. Sora just stood there, shaking her head in disbelief. Teo ignored them all. He was staring at his own hands, wondering what he'd just become. He'd walked onto this station as a nobody, a courier with a beat-up ship and a mountain of debt. Now these people were looking at him like he was the most important person in the galaxy. He had a feeling his delivery days were over. And he wasn't sure if that was a good thing or a terrible one. 3 days after touching the obelisk, Teo found himself in chains. They weren't real chains, of course. The Galactic Coalition didn't use primitive restraints. Instead, he wore a neural bracelet that would shock him unconscious if he tried to leave the secure transport ship. He sat in a sterile white room with no windows, traveling to somewhere he hadn't been told about. Dr. Sora sat across from him. They'd let her come along, though Teo suspected it was only because she was human, and they thought she might keep him calm. She looked tired. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. "I'm sorry," she said for the 100th time. "I never meant for this to happen." Teo shrugged. "You didn't put the bracelet on me. I should have kept it quiet. Should have hidden what you could do." "How?" 15 people saw it happen. 20 more watched the recordings." He leaned back against the cold wall. "The whole galaxy knows by now." He was right. The news had spread like fire. Within hours of Teo speaking the lost tongue, every major news network was broadcasting the story. A human, a nobody courier, could read Star King writing. The only person in billions who had this ability. By day 2, the Coalition military had arrived at Nethera Station. They'd been polite but firm. Teo needed to come with them. For his safety, they said, for testing and evaluation. He'd refused. They'd put the bracelet on him anyway. The bright moon was impounded, his ship, his home, his only possession of value, gone. They promised he'd get it back. Teo didn't believe them. The transport ship docked with a larger station after 8 hours. Guards escorted Teo and Dr. Sora through pristine corridors filled with aliens of a dozen different species. No one looked at them. Or rather, everyone looked at them and then quickly looked away. They were brought to a massive chamber with a curved ceiling that showed the stars outside. A half circle of seats rose in tiers, and in those seats sat the Grand Council of the Galactic Coalition. Representatives from every major species in known space. Teo had never seen anything like it. There were Kelvin with their 4 arms, Vrax with their scaled skin, Lithians made of living stone, and dozens of others he couldn't name. At the center sat a tall reptilian creature with golden eyes and crimson scales. His nameplate read, High Executor Velmaron. "Kang Teo," Velmaron said, his voice echoing through the chamber. Do you understand why you are here? Because I can do something no one else can, Teo replied. Correct. You possess a unique ability, an ability that could unlock the greatest mysteries of our galaxy. Velmaron leaned forward. The Star Kings left behind technology we cannot comprehend, weapons we cannot use, knowledge we cannot access. You are the key to all of it. A human woman stood from the lower tier. She was middle-aged with gray starting to show in her black hair. Her uniform marked her as an Earth ambassador. I am Chohana, representing humanity's interests. Teo has rights. You cannot force him to work for the Coalition. Can we not? A Vrax counselor hissed. He possesses knowledge that belongs to all species. To hoard it for himself would be criminal. He's not hoarding anything, Ambassador Cho shot back. He's a civilian who stumbled into this situation. He deserves compensation, protection, and a choice in what happens next. The council erupted in argument. Some agreed with Cho. Others demanded that Tayo be compelled to serve. A few suggested that his ability should be studied, replicated, perhaps extracted from his brain. That last suggestion made Teo's stomach turn. High Executor Velmarin raised a clawed hand, and the chamber fell silent. We will not harm the human, but neither can we allow him to refuse. The knowledge locked in Star King artifacts is too valuable. He fixed his golden eyes on Teo. You will work as a translator for the Coalition. In exchange, you will be paid handsomely and provided with everything you need. And if I refuse, Teo asked, though he already knew the answer, then you will remain in protective custody until you change your mind. Your ship will remain impounded. You will have no freedom to leave. Ambassador Cho looked like she wanted to argue more, but Teo held up a hand to stop her. He understood the situation. He had no real choice. Either he cooperated, or he spent the rest of his life in a cell. Fine, he said. I'll translate your artifacts, but I want my ship back, and I want to go home between jobs. Velmarin nodded. Acceptable? And so it began. Over the next 3 weeks, Teo was brought to various Coalition facilities. Each one had Star King artifacts that had been sitting in storage for decades, waiting for someone who could read them. Tablets, pillars, fragments of walls covered in the lost tongue. Teo touched each one and spoke the words that appeared in his mind. His voice gave meaning to symbols that had been meaningless for millions of years. Most of the artifacts were boring. Historical records, poetry, shopping lists probably. But some were different. Some made Teo's skin crawl. A black tablet in a military research facility read, "Through conquest comes unity. Through unity comes perfection. Let all lesser beings kneel before the throne or be unmade." A crystal shard in a museum spoke of, "The third purge is complete. 14 worlds cleansed. The screaming has finally stopped. We are becoming what we were meant to be." A golden plate, beautiful and terrible, declared, "We have transcended flesh. We have transcended mortality. We have become power itself, and power must feed." Dr. Sora noticed his discomfort. She'd been assigned as his handler, following him to each site and recording his translations. One night, as they sat in a Coalition apartment eating bland synthesized food, she asked him what was wrong. "The Star Kings," Teo said quietly. "They weren't good. They weren't noble. They were monsters. Many ancient civilizations were brutal by our standards. No, you don't understand." He pushed his food away. "These aren't just records of bad things they did. These are instructions, commands. The language itself it's not meant for communication. It's meant for control." Control of what? Everything. When I speak these words, I can feel it. Like the words want to do something. Want to make things happen. He looked at his hands. "I think the Lost Tongue is a programming language, and the Star King artifacts are machines waiting for commands." Dr. Sora's face went pale. "Have you told the Coalition this?" "Not yet." "Teo, you have to. If you're right, if these artifacts are active technology, then everyone will want to use them as weapons, as tools, as power." He met her eyes. "That's what scares me." A week later, his fears were confirmed. The Coalition brought him to a vault deep beneath the capital world's surface. Inside was a sphere of dark metal, covered in flowing script. The moment Teo touched it, he understood what it was. "It's a prison," he whispered. "A quantum prison. The Star Kings built it to hold themselves." High Executor Velmarin stepped forward. "Explain." Teo read the words, his voice shaking. "They became too powerful, started consuming everything. Other species, planets, stars. They couldn't stop themselves. So the last sane ones built this prison and trapped their entire civilization inside. Locked them away from reality itself." "Can they escape?" Velmaron asked. "Not without someone speaking the release command." "And can you speak it?" Teo looked at the sphere, at the terrible beauty of its script. Yes. Yes, he could speak those words. He could feel them waiting on his tongue. "I could," he said, "but I won't." He walked away from the sphere, away from the Coalition officials, away from the terrible power imprisoned in quantum darkness. But he knew the truth now. He wasn't just a translator. He was a key to horrors that should stay locked away forever. The attack came at midnight. Teo was sleeping in his assigned quarters on the Coalition capital world when the explosion threw him from his bed. Alarms screamed through the building. Red emergency lights flashed. He stumbled to his feet, ears ringing, and looked for his clothes. The door burst open. A figure in black armor aimed a weapon at his face. "Don't move, human!" The voice was filtered through a helmet, impossible to identify. The armored figure grabbed Teo's arm and yanked him toward the door. Outside, the corridor was chaos. Bodies lay on the floor, both Coalition guards and more black-armored attackers. Smoke filled the air. "Who are you?" Teo demanded. "Your new employer. The Kresh Empire needs your talents." The Kresh. Teo's blood went cold. The Kresh were the Coalition's rival power, a militant empire that believed in strength above all else. If they had him, they'd use him to activate Star King weapons. They'd use him to start a war. Before the attacker could drag him further, Ambassador Cho appeared from a side corridor with 2 human security officers. They opened fire. The Kresh soldiers' shields flared blue, absorbing the shots, but the impact made him stagger. His grip on Teo loosened. Teo didn't think. He just ran. He sprinted down the corridor, away from the fighting, his bare feet slapping against the cold floor. Behind him, he heard shouting and more weapons fire. He turned a corner and nearly collided with Dr. Sora. She was also in her sleep clothes, eyes wide with fear. "Teo, what's happening?" "The Kresh are here. They're trying to kidnap me." "This way." She grabbed his hand and led him through a maintenance door he hadn't known existed. They ran through narrow service corridors, the sounds of battle fading behind them. They emerged in a docking bay where the bright moon sat among other impounded ships. Teo's heart leapt at the sight of his ship. "They returned it last week," Dr. Sora said, breathing hard. "I had them keep it fueled just in case." "In case of what?" "In case something like this happened." She pulled a key card from her pocket. "I'm coming with you. The Coalition won't protect you anymore. You need to disappear." They boarded the bright moon and Teo ran to the cockpit. His hands flew over familiar controls. The engines hummed to life, that beautiful sound he'd missed so much. The docking clamps released. Emergency warnings flashed on every screen, but he ignored them. The bright moon shot out of the docking bay and into the night sky of the capital world. Within seconds, Coalition patrol ships were pursuing them. Within minutes, Kresh vessels appeared on the scanners too. Everyone wanted him. "Where do we go?" Dr. Sora asked from the co-pilot seat. "Anywhere but here." Teo pushed the ship toward orbit, weaving between buildings and traffic lanes. "Hold on!" He jumped to hyperspace the moment they cleared the planet's gravity well. It wasn't a clean jump, and the ship shuddered with the strain, but they made it. The stars stretched, and they were gone. For 3 days, they ran. Teo used every trick he knew to hide their trail, jumping between minor systems, landing on backwater stations, constantly moving. Dr. Sora stayed quiet, letting him focus on survival. On the 4th day, they received a transmission. It was Ambassador Cho. "Teo, if you're receiving this, I need you to meet me. There's something you need to know." Something about your ability. She gave coordinates to a station in neutral space. Please, this is bigger than you realize. It could be a trap, but Cho had saved him during the Kresh attack. Teo decided to take the chance. The meeting location was a rundown trading post called Haven's Edge. Teo and Dr. Sora found Ambassador Cho waiting in a private room with another human man. He was lean and scarred, with cold eyes that suggested he'd seen too much violence. This is Jin Woo, Cho introduced him. Former coalition military, now a private contractor. He's agreed to provide security. Jin Woo nodded at Teo. You're the one causing all the trouble? I didn't ask for any of this. No one ever does. Jin Woo leaned against the wall. But trouble found you anyway. Ambassador Cho activated a holographic display. It showed a complex genetic sequence. After you demonstrated your ability, I had scientists run tests on your DNA. We found something incredible. Humans have dormant genetic markers that match Star King genetic sequences found on their artifacts. Teo stared at the display. What does that mean? It means humanity is connected to the Star Kings. We're not descendants exactly, but we're related somehow. The leading theory is that humans are descended from a servitor race the Star Kings created. We were meant to serve them, to speak their language, to operate their machines. But the Star Kings are gone, Dr. Sora said. Yes, and we think humans helped destroy them, or at least helped trap them. Cho changed the display to show a star map. The genetic marker that lets you speak the lost tongue isn't unique to you, Teo. It's dormant in all humans, but something about touching that obelisk activated it in you. So there could be others? There already are. 5 more humans have manifested the ability since your story went public. The Coalition is hunting them down. The Kresh are too. Everyone wants to control the people who can speak the language of gods. Teo felt sick. This keeps getting worse. Jin Woo pushed off from the wall. There's a bigger problem. Professor Yoon Dae, the linguist studying your translations, has gone missing. He was on an expedition to Throne Prime. What's Throne Prime? The homeworld of the Star Kings, Ambassador Cho said grimly. He was leading a team to excavate the largest Star King structure ever found. They called it the World Forge. And 3 days ago, all communication from the expedition went dark. Dr. Sora gasped. The World Forge? That's the holy grail of xenoarchaeology. If it's real, it could be a planet-sized machine. Exactly, Cho said. A machine that could do anything, build worlds, destroy them, reshape reality, but only if someone activates it. Someone who can speak the lost tongue. Teo understood immediately. You think someone took the professor there to force him to activate it? Or someone on the expedition is forcing him, Jin Woo added. The coalition military sent an escort with that team. Not all of them can be trusted. What do you want from me? Teo asked. Ambassador Cho met his eyes. I want you to go to Throne Prime. Find out what happened to that expedition. And if someone is trying to activate the World Forge, stop them. I'm not a soldier. I'm not a hero. You're the only one who can read the controls of these machines. The only one who can understand what they do before activating them. She leaned forward. The Coalition won't send help because they want the World Forge for themselves. The Kresh are already sending ships there. If either side gets control of that machine, it's over. The galaxy burns. Teo looked at Dr. Sora, then at Jin Woo, then back at Ambassador Cho. He thought about running again, disappearing into some distant corner of space and hiding forever. But he couldn't. Because Cho was right. He was the only one who could do this. Okay, he said quietly. I'll go. Jin Woo smiled without humor. Good, because I already filed a flight plan. We leave in an hour. The bright moon departed Haven's Edge with 4 people aboard instead of 1. Teo sat in the captain's chair and set course for Throne Prime. He was going to the birthplace of the Star Kings, and he had a feeling he'd never be the same person when he returned. Throne Prime was beautiful and terrible. The planet hung in space like a dark jewel, its surface covered in structures so massive they were visible from orbit. Cities that stretched across continents, spires that pierced the atmosphere, bridges connecting mountains that were themselves artificial. All of it abandoned. all of it silent for millions of years. Look at the size of it, Dr. Sora whispered, staring at the viewport. A whole planet built as a throne room. Jin Woo checked his weapons. And somewhere down there is the World Forge. The bright moon descended through clouds that sparkled with metallic dust. Teo followed the last known coordinates of the expedition and landed near a canyon that split the planet's largest continent in half. At the bottom of that canyon, barely visible through the mist, was a structure so enormous it looked like a second planet trying to emerge from the first. The World Forge. They found the expedition's ships parked on a plateau overlooking the canyon. The vessels were empty but undamaged. No bodies, no signs of struggle. Everyone had simply walked into the canyon and not returned. I don't like this, Jin Woo muttered, scanning for life signs. 20 people don't just vanish? Maybe they went inside, Dr. Sora suggested, pointing to a massive doorway carved into the canyon wall. That looks like an entrance. They armed themselves and descended into the canyon on foot. The air was cold and tasted like metal. Strange sounds echoed from deep within the World Forge, rhythmic and mechanical, like a heartbeat made of gears. The doorway led to a tunnel wider than a city street. The walls were covered in the flowing script of the Lost Tongue, glowing softly in the darkness. Teo could read every word, even though he didn't want to. The door welcomes the speaker, he translated. It says to enter is to accept the burden of kings. To speak is to command. To command is to rule. Propaganda, Jin Woo said. Every tyrant thinks they're doing the world a favor. They walked for what felt like hours. The tunnel sloped downward, taking them deeper into the World Forge. Eventually, they reached a chamber so vast they couldn't see the ceiling or the far walls. Machines filled the space, towering constructs of crystal and metal that hummed with barely contained energy. And in the center of it all, they found the expedition. 20 people stood in a circle around a raised platform, completely motionless. Their eyes were open but blank, staring at nothing. Professor Yoon Dai stood among them, alive but not conscious. What happened to them? Dr. Sora rushed forward and checked the professor's vital signs. He's breathing, but he's not responding to anything. Teo approached the platform and his blood turned to ice. On its surface was a control panel covered in Star King script, and the words were asking a question. Who claims the throne? Who speaks with authority? Who dares to reshape the universe? It's a test, Teo said. Someone activated the World Forge and it put everyone into this state. It's waiting for someone to pass the test and prove they're worthy to control it. Can you wake them up? Ambassador Cho asked. Teo read more of the script. Yes, but only by answering the question. Only by taking the test. Don't, Jinwoo warned. We don't know what that machine does. But before Teo could respond, the decision was taken from him. The chamber's entrance sealed shut with a sound like thunder. New lights activated, bathing everything in harsh white radiance. And a voice spoke, not from any speaker, but from the air itself. A speaker has arrived. The test begins. The control panel blazed bright. Teo felt a pull, like invisible hands dragging him forward. His feet moved against his will. He stepped onto the platform and his hands touched the controls. The world exploded into information. Suddenly, Teo could see everything. Not just the World Forge, but the entire planet. Every machine, every system, every atom of matter responding to his thoughts. The World Forge was a reality engine, capable of transforming matter and energy according to programmed commands. With a word, he could reshape continents. With a sentence, he could terraform worlds. With a paragraph, he could create or destroy stars. But there was more. Deeper in the system, buried in layers of code, Teo found the truth about the Star Kings. They had been like him once. People who could speak the lost tongue. People who found Star King technology and learned to use it. And the technology had changed them, made them powerful, made them immortal, made them hungry for more. They had consumed their own people first, transformed them into servants and soldiers. Then they'd move to other species, other worlds. Nothing was enough. The power kept growing, and their need to use it kept growing with it. Until they were no longer people at all, just appetites wearing crowns. The last sane Star Kings had built the quantum prison and trapped their corrupted brothers inside. Then, they'd deactivated the World Forge and hidden it. But they'd left one final message encoded in the system. To the one who comes after, this power will destroy you as it destroyed us. Do not claim the throne. Do not speak the Ascension Code. Let the Age of Kings end. Teo pulled his hands away from the controls, breaking the connection. He stumbled backward, gasping for air. The expedition members collapsed, released from their trance. Professor Yoon-dae coughed and opened his eyes. What happened? The professor asked weakly. The World Forge tested us, Teo said. It wanted to see if anyone was worthy to control it. And are you? Ambassador Cho asked quietly. Teo looked at the control panel, at the power waiting there. He could feel it calling to him. Just a few words, just a small command. He could do so much good with this power. End wars, cure diseases, make humanity the strongest species in the galaxy. But he'd seen what that path led to. He'd felt the hunger of the Star Kings echoing through the machine's code. No, he said firmly. No one is worthy of this. The chamber shook. Alarms blared from the World Forge's systems. On the control panel, red script appeared. Rejection detected. Security protocols activated. What does that mean? Jin Woo shouted over the noise. It means the World Forge thinks I'm a threat. Teo grabbed Dr. Sora's arm. Run! Everyone run! They fled back through the tunnel as the World Forge came alive around them. Machines activated, filling the air with energy that made their hair stand on end. Behind them, something massive was moving, grinding stone and metal together. They burst out of the canyon entrance just as the doors slammed shut. The ground trembled. In the canyon below, the World Forge's spires began to rise higher, breaking through the mist. It's waking up, Professor Yoon-dae said in horror. The whole machine is activating. Ships appeared in the sky, coalition vessels and Kresh warships drawn by the energy signatures. They opened fire on each other immediately, turning the air above Throne Prime into a battlefield. They're fighting over the World Forge, Ambassador Cho said. They'll destroy this whole planet to control it. Jin Woo grabbed Teo's shoulder. Can you shut it down? I don't know. I'd have to go back inside. Then we go back. It'll kill us. The security systems? We'll kill everyone if we don't stop this. Jin Woo checked his weapon. You said no one is worthy of this power. Prove it. Shut it down before someone else gets control. Teo looked at the bright moon, at the escape that waited there. He could run. He could leave this planet and its terrible machines behind. But Jin Woo was right. If he ran, someone else would claim the throne. Someone else would speak the Ascension Code and become what the Star Kings had been. He couldn't let that happen. Okay, Teo said. Let's end this. They turned back toward the canyon, toward the World Forge and its promises of power. Teo was done running. The canyon entrance wouldn't open. Teo pressed his hands against the sealed doors and spoke every command phrase he could remember from the control panel. Nothing worked. The World Forge had locked itself down, protecting its heart from intruders. Above them, the space battle intensified. Ships exploded in bright flashes. Debris rained down around the plateau. A Kresh cruiser crashed into the canyon wall, shaking the ground. We're running out of time, Jin Woo said. They're going to blow this whole planet apart trying to control that machine. Dr. Sora studied the door, running her hands across the symbols. There has to be another way in. Maintenance tunnels, ventilation shafts, something? Or we make our own entrance, Jin Woo suggested, holding up an explosive charge. No, Teo grabbed his arm. This whole structure is a machine. Blow a hole in it and we might trigger a chain reaction. A shadow fell over them. They looked up to see a massive Kresh warship descending through the clouds. It was damaged, trailing smoke, clearly losing its fight with the coalition forces. But it had enough power for one final action. The ship's weapons charged, aimed directly at the World Forge. They're going to destroy it, Ambassador Cho said. If the Kresh can't have it, no one can. The energy beams lanced down from the sky. They struck the canyon walls, the World Forge's outer shell, melting stone and metal. The machines inside screamed in protest, and the sealed doors burst open, blown outward by the pressure. "That works too," Jinwoo muttered, and they ran inside. The tunnel was chaos. Sparks flew from damaged systems. The walls groaned as structural supports failed. But the path to the central chamber was still intact. They sprinted through the corridor, jumping over debris and dodging falling equipment. They reached the vast chamber to find it transformed. The machines were fully active now, humming with terrible power. Energy arced between the towering constructs, and standing on the central platform, hands on the controls, was a coalition military officer, Commander Park. Teo recognized him from the expedition manifest. He was speaking the lost tongue, his voice echoing through the chamber. The World Forge was responding, reality bending to his commands. "Stop!" Teo shouted. Commander Park turned, his eyes blazing with inner light. "You rejected the throne, Kang Teo, but I won't. Humanity deserves this power. We've been servants for too long, slaves to stronger species. But with the World Forge, we can become the rulers we were meant to be. You don't understand what you're doing. That power will corrupt you." "I don't care." Park smiled, and it was the smile of someone already lost. "I've seen what this machine can do. I can make humanity immortal, invincible. We'll reshape the galaxy in our image. No more being overlooked. No more being weak." He turned back to the controls and began speaking again. The lost tongue flowed from his lips in a complex string of commands. Teo could understand every word. Park was speaking the Ascension Code, the same code that had transformed the original Star Kings from people into monsters. The code that would give him unlimited power and unlimited hunger. And once complete, there would be no stopping him. Jin Woo raised his weapon, but Ambassador Cho pushed it down. "You can't shoot him. He's the only thing keeping the World Forge stable right now. Kill him, and it might explode." "So what do we do?" Dr. Sora asked desperately. Teo stepped forward. He walked toward the platform, toward Commander Park and the terrible power he was claiming. Park didn't even notice him, too focused on the Ascension Code. Teo climbed onto the platform and placed his hands on the controls beside Park's. The connection was instant. Teo felt the World Forge's systems, felt the commands Park was inputting, felt the transformation beginning. And he felt something else. A final option. A last command that the sane Star Kings had left behind. The silence. A single word in the lost tongue that would shut down every Star King machine in the galaxy. Permanently, irreversibly. It would destroy the World Forge, collapse the quantum prison, erase all Star King technology from existence. Everything they'd built, everything they'd created, would be reduced to inert matter, including the ability to speak the lost tongue itself. Commander Park realized what Teo was doing. He tried to fight, tried to push Teo away from the controls, but it was too late. Teo opened his mouth and spoke. One word, simple and final. The effect was immediate. The machines stopped humming. The energy arcing between them faded. Commander Park screamed as the power drained from him, as the Ascension Code unraveled. He collapsed on the platform, unconscious but alive. The World Forge began to die. Systems shut down in cascading waves. The towering constructs went dark. The control panel under Teo's hands crumbled to dust. And deep within his mind, Teo felt something break. The connection to the lost tongue, the genetic memory that had allowed him to speak it, simply ended. He tried to read the symbols on the walls. They were just marks now. Meaningless scratches. The language that had been so clear was now incomprehensible. "What did you do?" Dr. Sora asked, helping him down from the platform. "I spoke the silence. It's over. All of it. The World Forge, the Star King technology, the lost tongue itself. It's all gone." "Can you still speak it?" Ambassador Cho asked. Teo shook his head. "No, and no human ever will again. The genetic connection is broken. We're free." The chamber shook as more Coalition and Kresh weapons struck the planet's surface. But the World Forge was no longer responding. It was just dead metal now, no more valuable than any other ruin. "We need to leave," Jinwoo said. "This whole place is coming down." They ran, through the crumbling tunnel, past falling debris, into the canyon where the bright moon waited. Ships still fought in the sky, but they were pulling back now, confused by the World Forge's sudden shutdown. The bright moon lifted off as the canyon collapsed behind them. Teo pushed the ship hard, breaking atmosphere and jumping to hyperspace before anyone could stop them. For a long time, no one spoke. They just sat in the cockpit, breathing, alive, free. Finally, Ambassador Cho broke the silence. The quantum prison collapsed too. The Star Kings are gone. Really gone this time. Were they still alive in there? Dr. Sora asked. No, Teo said quietly. I felt them when I connected to the World Forge. They died a long time ago. The prison was just holding dust and ghosts. So it's really over, Jinwoo said. The age of Star Kings is finished. Yes. Teo leaned back in his chair, exhausted. And the age of pretending to be them is too. News of what happened on Throne Prime spread quickly. The Coalition and Kresh both tried to salvage technology from the planet, but it was all inert. Dead. Useless. The other humans who had manifested the ability to speak the lost tongue reported that their gift had vanished. The language was truly lost now. Some called Tayo a hero. Others called him a fool who had destroyed humanity's chance at greatness. He didn't care about either opinion. 3 months later, Teo sat in the cockpit of the Bright Moon, reviewing delivery contracts. The ship was his again, truly his. The Coalition had paid him for his service and released him from all obligations. He was free to go back to his old life. Dr. Sora had returned to her research, studying the now inert Star King ruins with new appreciation for what they had been. Ambassador Cho was working on new treaties between species, arguing that humanity had proven its wisdom by choosing restraint over power. Professor Yoon Dae had recovered fully and was writing a book about the experience. Jin Woo had asked to stay on as Tayo's co-pilot. Someone needs to keep you out of trouble, he'd said. Tayo had agreed. They were hauling medical supplies to a colony world when Jin Woo asked the question. Do you regret it? Giving up that power? Tayo thought about it. He remembered the feeling of the World Forge responding to his commands, the potential to reshape reality itself. He could have been a god, could have made humanity the strongest species in the galaxy. But he also remembered the hunger in Commander Park's eyes, the corruption in the Star King's final messages, the terrible cost of absolute power. No, he said, I don't regret it. Why not? Because I like being human, not a king, not a god, just a person who makes deliveries and pays his bills and sometimes helps people when he can. He smiled. There's freedom in being ordinary. Jinwoo nodded. You know the galaxy won't forget what you did. They'll always remember you as the man who spoke the last word. Let them remember. I'll be busy flying my ship. The bright moon continued through hyperspace, carrying its cargo to people who needed it. In the back of the ship, packages waited to be delivered. Simple things. Important things. Teo had been the key to the greatest power in the galaxy. He'd been the one who could speak the language of gods. And he'd chosen to lock it all away and return to being exactly what he'd always been. A delivery boy with a ship, a dream, and a universe full of stars to explore. It was more than enough. It was everything.